Fiji Electricity Authority was established, incorporated, and constituted under the provisions of the Electricity Act. They began their operations on Monday, the 1st of August 1966 in Lautoka. In the same year, the FEA was responsible for supplying electricity to the Nadi and Lautoka areas. Levuka was also part of this extensive electrification process. It would be 12 years before Suva became part of FEA's jurisdiction. By the end of the first year, the FEA had taken electricity to the Nadi areas and improved the Singatoka supply generators. 1967 also saw the introduction of streetlights in Ba and Lautoka. The FEA managed to reduce charges to its first few consumers and earn a decent profit of £14,999. In 1968, a new power station was opened in Levuka, which inaugurated the change from DC to AC supply. This was followed by the construction of a new power station in Sabu-Sabu. The FEA finally took over the power supply from the Khan brothers, who had operated and supplied electricity for the previous 30 years to Nadi town in 1969. As Fiji embarked on a maiden voyage as a newly independent state, the need for electricity soared as a symbolic reflection. Consumers had to wait for 3 months to get connected. By then, the total number of consumers had reached 5,000. The FEA recorded a 300% increase in sales since its establishment. Progress in rural electrification was encouraging. 1977 marked the completion of the Vunda Power Station, one of the first major projects undertaken by the FEA. The completion of Vunda meant that the demand for electricity in the surrounding rural and urban region would be met. 1977 was an important year, as much of the groundwork needed for the Monosabu Hydro project was finalized. The moment FEA had been waiting for arrived as they finally acquired the assets of the Suva City Council electricity supply on the 25th of July 1978. This event coincided with the Monosabu scheme, which would only be financially viable if the FEA had control of the Suva power supply. Monosabu moved forward as finance, and the first contracts were finalized and arranged. Work commenced at Monosabu. Stage 1 saw the height of the dam raised by 15 meters to increase the generating capacity of the Wailoa power station from 40 to 80 megawatts. Major transmission line work across Witilevu worth $26 million was also underway. This was to link the Suva supply with the western region. This was followed by the FEA's top post being localized for the first time when Mr. David Pickering was appointed the general manager.
The Fiji Electricity Authority is responsible for the generation and distribution of electricity to the people of Fiji at the lowest possible cost.
3 132 and 33 kV substations were set up at Vunda, Wailoa, and Cunningham Road. 19 smaller substations were also commissioned. Work on the hydro project was also picking up pace as the FEA's Special Projects Division was formed to implement and supervise civil engineering works. In 1981, the 132 kV line across Witilevu was inaugurated by the then Prime Minister, the late Ratu Sir Kamisese Mara. The government also showed its support for the Monosabu project by contributing $10.1 million towards the scheme. 1981 also saw the opening of the Vunda-based National Control Center. This highly secured facility was responsible for monitoring the national load demand and ensured all FEA transmission facilities operated efficiently. This was a milestone in Fiji's efforts towards energy self-reliance. Progress and achievements continued in 1982. The Monosabu Dam was completed ahead of schedule despite the hurdles and great challenges the FEA faced during this tremendous project. Controlled filling of the reservoir began. There was an influx of Monosabu visitors, 9,000 in total, indicating high public interest in the project. Hydropower flowed for the first time in Witilevu. This marked the beginning of Fiji's independence on renewable energy. The Monosabu Hydro scheme was opened by the then Governor General Ratu Sir Penayang Anilau.
With this historic occasion, the commissioning today of the Monosabu hydroelectric scheme, which marks the culmination of one of the most dynamic and challenging developments ever undertaken in this country.
Although diesel generation still played a role in other parts, most of Fiji's electricity was now locally produced. Income was nearing $40 million, and FEA now had almost 56,000 consumers. Hydropower accounted for 99.2% of total FEA energy generated on Viti Levu. In 1985, the third phase of power project was opened. Electricity was available to all areas within the declared boundaries of cities, towns, and townships. About 98.6% of all households were connected. Suva Power Station, which had been in operation from 1920, closed down, ending an era of electrical generation within the Suva city boundaries. Further financial assistance was received in 1989 to accommodate rural electrification programs.
The FEA was driven as ever to electrify Fiji as the 90s dawned. By 1993, the Korovo Power Station in Tailevu was finally opened, providing electricity to more than 20 villages, schools and the surrounding township. 13 villages from the Rewa Delta were also electrified under an EEC 8 scheme. Damage sustained from Cyclone Kina was substantial but did not deter the spirits of the hard-working men and women of the Fiji Electricity Authority. Local industries grew rapidly in the mid-90s as our economy stabilized and electrification was well underway to cover all major centers. 1995 was a significantly good year financially as the FEA eliminated all its short-term debts by paying off the last $7 million. Growth in income by 5.6%, increase in profits by 25%, and a decrease in borrowings by $11.5 million were also highlights of the year. An important upgrade in communication was also underway as the FEA started implementing the SCADA comms network with assistance from Fiji Telecom. So far in Viti Levu, 79,757 customers have connected to the electricity grid. In 1996, the government indicated to the authority that it was a prime candidate for corporatization and future privatization. 1996 also saw the first ever drop in electricity tariffs, and this drop did not affect electricity sales, which increased by 1.2% to a new record of $88 million. By 1997, the old Suva Power Station was being converted into the Central Division Regional Office, and plans were underway to construct the head office in Suva. One of the FEA's major achievements in 1998 was its ability to extend the power grid back to the Nandrau Plateau and the Wainimala area. This was made possible by a $10 million provision by the government, and as a result, more than 400 homes received electricity. The next stage, which was to be completed in 1999, was the deployment of 18 kilometers of high voltage line and 6 kilometers of lower voltage line to add an additional 140 homes to the grid. The FEA once again rose and made their mark on the customer service front. This was initiated by the opening of their new head office in Marlow Street in Suva. The FEA also signed agreements with Post Fiji Limited, the ANZ and Westpac banks to use their services as a payment facility for FEA customers. The FEA also streamlined the time taken to read meters and bill customers to 4 days. The FEA recorded a total operating revenue of $107.35 million for the year 2001, and this represented an increase of $8.6 million. There was an unwavering effort to provide electricity to every Fijian household, one which was witnessed by the residents of Serua Island who were connected to the power grid in the year 2002. In the restructuring process, the Fiji Electricity Authority has introduced a new vision, a new mission, and a new set of values. This was encapsulated into its new logo, which represents a new era and illustrates everything the Fiji Electricity Authority stands for and the authority's ambition to utilize clean, renewable energy. By now, the FEA had come a long way. As Fiji was being provided with 70% hydroelectric energy, the Wainikaso and Vaturu hydro schemes were well into the planning stages, with construction due to commence shortly and a wind farm project forecast to generate clean energy was in the works. 14 years have now passed since the FEA adopted a reformed identity. Since then, other renewable energy initiatives have materialized, enforcing the vision that we have for a green Fiji by 2025 and beyond. From our humble beginnings with a mere 2009 consumers in 1966, we extended our reach to cover up to 87% of the country. For the past 50 years, the Fiji Electricity Authority has played a big role in Fiji's progress as the industries rely heavily on a consistent, safe and viable source of energy. At this rate, we strongly believe that our vision will lead us to become a world-recognized champion of clean renewable energy in 2025 and beyond.